Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our March 2024 free class inside the Living on Lemonade community. Today, we are talking about motivation. The topic is motivation. It's funny, I don't know what it is about things lately, but my whole process has changed. And I put this together today, like the notes. And normally I plan it so far ahead and I make a whole slideshow. And I've been feeling really pulled to just follow the breadcrumbs, follow my intuition, follow the information that kind of like flows through me. And I'm going with it because last night was super magical inside the Build Your Soul Care Tool Belt Module 1. I did the same thing. I essentially planned the notes like day of or day before. I it's interesting because I had all the modules and everything, but I wasn't I wasn't able to like lay it out on the full path, the full picture. It just wasn't working out that way for me. So I just had this pull of like you're gonna get the little breadcrumbs one step in front of the other and just keep following them. So that's what I've been doing. So for this class, this is what it looks like. It's a piece of paper front and back. If you're watching it on the YouTube channel, when I finally get them uploaded, I was doing okay. Got a few up, but anyway, I've fallen behind. I just haven't had that. It takes very intentional time to put it up because you're looking at the video and doing a little bit of edit here and there, and then you have to wait till it uploads, and it's a whole thing anyway. It's a lot more of a workhorse than my podcast, that's for sure. Okay, before we dive into the content, as always, we're gonna kind of breathe off the day a little bit, or if you're watching this during the day, just take a mindful moment. We're gonna take th 3 or 4 deep breaths, eyes open, eyes closed, hand over heart, two, none, up to you. Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your nose, your mouth. And just make sure your exhale is longer than your inhale. That tells your body it's safe and brings it back to that kind of rest and digest state. So we'll take a few deep breaths together. Just if you need to like shake it out a little bit, drop your shoulders, relax your jaw, just kind of shake off whatever part of the day you're at. Imagine everything washing away. You need some more deep breaths? Keep going. Okay. Motivation. This was some of the feedback that I received when I did a post just asking for some inspiration. It was not flowing through me that day. And what's really interesting, I found it really interesting what came through for me when I kind of was doing a bit of a brain dump and just tuning into what I wanted to talk about because I had a couple ideas, but it's like, can I make a full training on it or how's this gonna look? And it's funny, I even like Googled like ways to motivate and then immediately I was like, nah, no, I'm not doing it this way. What I've been feeling called to transition to is really less about needing external things to back my classes and content. I mean, it's never a bad thing, but um, I guess having a little less structure, a little more flow allows me to, I don't know, I just feel like it allows me to tap into the magic a little bit more if that makes any sense. because when I have these slides, I tend to just like focus too much on them and I'm reading off things or I get a little bit sidetracked. And this way, I just have some loose notes. It helps to guide me if I get a little bit off track or just want to make sure that I don't miss things. That's the biggest thing. But who do we got here? Say hi. But I've been finding like last night's I'll give you an example. Last night's module one for the Build Your Soul Care tool belt, I had like loose notes. I had less notes than this one. And a little while, like a few minutes before, I think I sat down maybe half hour before class and just did some breaths, got back into my body. And I was thinking like, what am I going to do for the meditation at the end? And I'd written down a couple ideas and I was just like, oh, I don't know. So I went into a bit of a meditation for myself and the whole thing unfolded in my mind's eye. Hi, Nancy. I'm so glad you made it. And it was like, it was profound. Like I had to stop in the middle of it and go, whoa, this is going to be potent. And then what it ended up being was it was a meditation to introduce the women in this class to their soul. It was like meet your soul. And they had all kinds of emotions afterwards when we talked about it. We popped on a Zoom together after the live portion and they were yeah emotional and they were profound. They were just awestruck really by the experience and that they didn't know they could have with themselves, right? Like how deep they went. It was really, really beautiful. So anyway, that's my intro as to why I'm doing things a little bit differently. I feel called to do it and I'm just following the breadcrumbs. I don't know, I feel like things have expanded lately, so I'm excited. All right, let's dive in. So I have a few notes here about let's start first about what clouds motivation. Like what keeps us from feeling motivated? And if you're expecting this to be the have like the kind of mainstream stuff about motivation. This is I don't feel this is it at all. You can tell me after if you think it is, but I feel like this is a lot of things that we wouldn't necessarily think about as contributing to our lack of motivation, or maybe I'm just saying it in a different way. But a few things I have here are I mean, obviously, exhaustion and burnout makes it difficult for us to feel motivated to do anything except for want to sleep. Those are obvious ones. Extension of that, that's a dysregulated nervous system, right? And also, hi Margot, so glad you're here as well. Also, if you feel dysregulated, if you feel burnt out, if you feel exhausted, a natural response, it's also societally accepted, is to like numb out, right? If you're going through a difficult time, we numb out with all kinds of things. We numb out with like alcohol, we sleep more, we scroll on our phones, we do all kinds of things. So if these are things that are going on, that's certainly going to affect your motivation. Another thing, shoulds. I put them in quotes. If the things that you need to do, if they feel like shoulds, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but those are also things. If you feel like you should do, but you don't want to do it, that's obviously going to affect how hard you push yourself to actually get the deed done or whatever, the to-do list thing, right? If the thing that you want or need to do is something you have never done before, if it's outside of your comfort zone, and this is an important one, if it's something that allows you the opportunity to grow, to learn, to expand. And this, you might be like, what does that have to do with it? But when we look at our brain and our evolution, things that are new, things that could expand and grow us are potentially dangerous to the primitive parts of our brain. it wants none of it. It wants us to survive and procreate and continue the lineage. Outside of that, doesn't really care. It's not picking and choosing. And but that higher part of our mind or like our soul, it pulls us towards what's best for us. So that's why we get these when we're able to listen to them. This is why we get these nudges towards the things, but they often don't make sense. They don't seem like the logical road to take towards things. And that's just because it's beyond our human comprehension. But those primitive parts of our brain are like, no dice. That's like walking through fog. It looks scary. That's like walking through the dark. How do we do that? We don't know how to do that. We could die a million different ways. So just naturally, our brain and our physiology will kind of try to shut it down, right? And make it seem way more adverse than it is, so that we don't do it, so we don't feel motivated, so that we're afraid of it, and we don't do it. And a couple more things. The next thing I have written down is when it's not aligned with your soul values. I can't stress this enough, especially for the women in here who are in network marketing businesses. I could honestly, like, I've thought about doing a whole program. I will one of these days. I will bring it out into the world. It'll be a paid container because it's going to be profound. And I feel like I'm really just getting into that era of the way that I'm able to show up and teach. I feel a shift. It'll be interesting to listen back to some of my earlier teachings and see how things are shifting. Maybe there's not a big difference yet, but I feel the shift. Nancy says, don't should yourself. No shoulding on yourself. Never should on yourself. So if the things are not aligned with your soul and with your values, that causes and like there's an energy to it, right? If you know, you know. And when we try to force things that are out of alignment with our true values and what our soul desires, there will be natural resistance to it. We will, for one, it will feel in our body, at least from my experience, it feels like a contraction. It's like, oh, I gotta do this, or I should do this. It brings it back to the shoulds. This is where the shoulds stem from oftentimes. It's it's things that are out of alignment with us. It's things that we feel pressured to people please, or we lack boundaries. We commit to things that we really have no intention of doing or don't want to do, but we feel an obligation. We haven't created those boundaries. We have those people pleasing tendencies. This all ends up affecting really how hard we're going to work at the outcome or whatever we think we need to do. And the last point I have here is the ego. That's like the human part of this experience. We have that inner wisdom, that inner pull, that inner intuition, that soul part of us that's like, it has a quieter voice, but it's very steady. It's very grounded. It's very sure. Even when it doesn't make sense, it will give you the next steps one by one by one. It won't show you the entire path because you have to learn along the way. And to be honest, if you're going for something like big growth expansion over time, if it were to show us the path of what we're actually capable of doing, our nervous system would never support it. Remember how I talked about fear earlier? It would never, because the things that inner essence of it, that inner knowing and intelligence, it it it, it can lead us to things that are wildly beyond our human comprehension. And that's why it shows us the little pieces of the path. It illuminates enough of it that we know those next steps to take and we have to action them. We have to work through whatever fear of the unknown, but it will always lead us to something that's for our highest good. The ego, on the other hand, is that humanist, is that primitive, that survival kind of energy, or I feel like there's another word for that, but it is very much not grounded. It is the opposite of soul. It is very like rushed and chaotic and fearful. It feels like time's running out. You got to do the thing. And then, so then it ends up putting you in this circumstance where you create all these excuses not to do the thing if you feel like it's something you really do want to do. So when we can become aware of these things, then we can kind of like, hey, I know that's my ego right now, just trying to keep me safe, and that's okay. So those are a few things that kind of came to my mind in terms of what can hold us back from feeling motivated to do the things. Sometimes we know we need to do the thing. It doesn't mean we're always going to be motivated, and sometimes it's just simple things, but these are kind of like the deeper things. I like to teach people introductory topics, how to start exploring different things, and at the root of all of it, getting curious. I like to teach people how to get curious about life, explore things. So here's the tips. We're getting down to the magic of it. On my first topic, when I was talking about exhaustion, burnout, dysregulated nervous system, and let me know in the comments if this is landing, if this makes sense. You have questions or do you have comments? I do love to interact in the comments too. It kind of like keeps me vibing. So when we're looking at the nervous system stuff, the burnout, the exhaustion, numbing out so that we can avoid whatever's going on, this is a good indicator that it's time to check in. It's time to actually reconnect with your body. There's a term used with first responders when they're going to critical incidents and stuff, and it's called functional disconnection. So essentially, it is a defensive mechanism or survival mechanism that allows them to kind of disconnect a little bit from the experience that they're having in order to do their job. Because as we know with our physiology, when until we're trained and stuff, when we go into stressful situations, if we get really activated, if our nervous system gets activated and takes over, it can shut down the reasoning, that prefrontal cortex part. And then if you've ever seen someone kind of freeze in a situation and not know how to react, and they don't like go to help, or they're just a little bit confused, that's that prefrontal cortex that's kind of like offline. So in order to make sure that their brain is still working optimally so that they can go and help and get themselves out of a sticky situation, a dangerous situation, get others out, they have to keep that prefrontal cortex online. So they have to actually kind of disconnect. And the important thing is, after that incident, not only might they need a little talk therapy or counseling, they have to find ways to functionally reconnect. So when we're numbed out about life, we've disconnected from emotions, which if you disconnect from the more difficult emotions, we can't pick and choose the emotions we disconnect to. We then also disconnect from the joy and the more exciting emotions. What's the word I want to use? I don't like to use positive and negative because I don't think emotions should be labeled that way, because they're just messengers, but the more enjoyable emotions, right? So this is the opportunity. That's your kind of red flag to check in with your mind, body, and soul. Where are you at? Do you need nourishment? Have you been sleeping? Are you taking care of your body? Have you been drinking enough water? What is your emotional, mental, physical capacity at? What, like, your resilience? Check in on your resilience. Like, how are you doing? Do a body scan, head to toe. It's a bit of, I say body scan, you can do like a body scan meditation, you can look it up, and it's really just having a mindful awareness of your body. You start paying attention to all the parts of your body. Are you holding tension? Do your shoulders feel like they're up touching your ears, or are they relaxed? Is your tongue at the top of your mouth? That is a sign of stress. Or is your jaw relaxed? Doing a body scan, checking in with your body. What's it like? Have you been having digestive issues? How's How's your mind? How have you been feeling mentally? And have you been feeding your soul? Have you been doing things that bring you joy and make you feel expanded and make you want to show up to your life? Take an inventory of that. And if you're lacking in some of those areas, it's simply a check-in to say, you know what, not feeling so great mentally. What are your tools? What can you pull out of your tool belt to help to nourish and support that part of you? Because when you have capacity and you're feeling well, the more capacity we have, the more motivation we have to live a fuller life, a fuller, more joyful life, right? And I have written here the in terms of the thing that you're feeling unmotivated towards, what is the undercurrent intention of what you need to do? Is it, just give me 1 second because I have to get back on the train of thought. Actually, you know what? I think this was related to something down the line a little bit. But when I talked about if it's in alignment, that's what I meant with the undercurrent intention of what you need to do. Um, you have to be connected to that. If it's not something, hi Sonia, if it's not something you feel lit up to do, or especially if it's, and there's a difference between I don't want to do this because it's outside of my comfort zone, but it's something I need to do so that I can learn and grow and do the next thing that will make me feel joyful and expansive. And I don't want to do this thing because it makes me want to crawl into myself and disappear because it's out of alignment with my values and like what I stand for as a human in this experience. And if it's fear, let's talk about fear first. Something that's going to be a learning opportunity and expansive. These are the things we should remind ourselves. If I want to get to this next level, like say you're in a business, we have to try new things all the time. We want to check in if we're aligned with it first. But if we know we are and it's the next right thing, we feel those nudges of like, you get those reminders when you can get quiet and start to actually listen. That voice gets louder, that that compass, that internal compass starts to get louder, and you'll start, it's like you get those little reminders. And when you don't listen to them, they keep coming. It's like, yeah, I know I need to do this. If it's that situation, here's a tip that you can use to work through some of the fear. And this is something that I got from one of my mentors. It's called the limitless truth formula. And essentially, you're just breaking down your own ego, your own fear response through asking it a few questions, asking yourself a few questions. The first thing is what you have to first, you have to identify what the fear is. Get to the root of like, why am I so resistant? Why do I feel so unmotivated to do this thing? If you know that fear is at the root of it, what are you fearful of? Are you fearful that it won't work out? Are you fearful that other people will think something about it and make something of it? Whatever that is, get curious and kind of get quiet. Something will come to you. Your subconscious will tell you what you're fearful of. You just have to create the space and listen. And then ask yourself, is that actually true? That whatever your fear is, that's saying that this is going to happen, or this is whatever the outcome it thinks is going to happen, that's keep holding you back from the motivation of doing the thing. Does everyone believe this? Because if not everyone believes that this is whatever your fear is of coming true, then it's a belief. If it's not true for everyone, it's only true for you. It's only a belief for you. Is it serving your highest good? If it's holding you back from growth, from joy, from expansion, probably not for your highest good, right? And the next thing, what is the actual truth? What is the actual truth about this? Well, maybe things don't work out. maybe it takes longer than you anticipate to get the result that you want on whatever you're working towards, or whatever this is. If in the comments, throw me I'm on the spot. It'd be like on the spot coaching a little bit. But if you have a situation that you've been feeling unmotivated, like throw it in the comments. We'll see if we can work through it a little bit. Hope that I didn't just throw my own fear out there. But when you can start to, you're essentially like you're putting light on it, because fears, they like to live in the dark, right? And that's how they control us. But when we actually get to shine some light on it, give it some love, the fear starts to dissipate, because we start to call it out on its own shit, right? And when you can realize that, hey, that's not the truth. I'm not going to be publicly shamed if I you know try this thing and it doesn't work out. I might be a little disappointed, but remember, disappointment, you can only be disappointed if you have an expectation for something, right? So keep an open mind, and be ready to learn and grow. And we learn and grow best when things don't go as planned. If you are feeling timeline pressure with it, remember I said the ego likes to make things feel like we're running out of time and it's just this big thing. Or it can be the opposite too. It can be like, oh, I'll just do that tomorrow. It's like that's like typical classic trick of the ego. Oh, I'll just do that tomorrow. Always putting it off, always procrastinating. But if you are feeling this timeline pressure of like, oh my gosh, if I don't do it to this degree of perfection or quality, then like I can't even do it all, or I shouldn't do it at all. Ask yourself, and if you're putting lots of stuff on your plate, because as we know, the more stuff we put on our plate, it can lead to burnout and all the things. All these things kind of like intertwine. So we have to start looking at the different pieces and pick them apart a little bit, and start to just see how everything interacts with each other, and the things that aren't serving us, then we can kind of work through them. We can pick out the parts that are kind of working well, and expand on them, and the things that are causing blocks in the flow, we can pick it out. We got to see all the pieces though. So in terms of the time pressure, ask yourself, if you feel you have to get all these things done by the end of the day or by the end of the week, or whatever this timeline is that you've put on yourself, ask yourself if it's actually time sensitive, or have you just put this pressure on yourself? We do it all the time. Sometimes we do it just because it can be related back to I don't really want to say trauma, but I guess just like belief systems and behaviors, like thought patterns and stuff. We can do that as just a like a subconscious thing, but also it can be kind of a trick of the ego too, right? Nancy says she's been taking a lot of leaps to get out there. You've been doing such a wonderful job. She creates small to-do lists, so you're able to do them in a day, 3 to 6 things per day. And you know what? Life throws you a curveball, and you get 2 things done, and you write the thing on the next day's list, right? We don't know what's going to happen in our day. We have all these intentions, and intentions are great, but we can't expect that everything goes well every day. So back to what I was saying. If you're putting pressure on yourself, there's going to be a should in there too, right? We're shoulding on ourselves. We're getting back to that point. Remind yourself, that soul, if this is something you're truly like led, if the undercurrent of the intention is expansive and it's just nourishing, and you just know that if you've tuned into it, soul doesn't put a timeline on things. It unravels as it unravels. And oftentimes we need to learn the lessons along the way to create the capacity to learn the lessons that allow us to take the steps that are further out that we can't see yet. We have to take the journey. We can't see the end goal. I already talked about if it's in alignment with your values, boundaries, people pleasing, basically societal norms, right? Things that can get in the way. I have another reminder, things that are out of alignment of our values and are driven by the ego will cause resistance. It's going to be a huge driver in a lack of motivation because it doesn't feel right and it might feel hard because it's against that natural flow that we want to take. And like soul knows the way. How can you hear the whispers and take the actions? Are you tuning in every day? Do you have a mindfulness practice? You don't have to I don't sit for hours on end meditating or anything like that. I start my day with a 10-minute meditation. It's really just because I'm not really a morning person, so especially when my alarm goes off at 5:15 in the morning, I feel resistant to get out of bed. So I start it with a guided meditation and I just lay there in bed with my eyes closed and I take some deep breaths. And that just starts to kind of wake up my body. I wiggle my fingers and toes a little bit and I just nicely wake up. Then I pull a card, an oracle card. I say like, what do I need to know for the day? And I just set an intention. What little piece of wisdom, and the deck that I've been using lately is just super beautiful. Always has a really loving and encouraging message to it. And it's a positive way to start my day. And then I'm ready to get up. And having that quiet time also allows space to get those like hits of intuition, those ideas. I've been getting a lot lately. I created an offer today at work that I'm excited to announce when it's like fully ready to come out to the world. I'm waiting on a couple things, but all the graphics are made. Like when I get the ideas, I just like brain dump, it flows through me. I'm on Canva, I'm creating all the graphics, all the information. I'm like go go go, I'm ready. And then I've been learning now, instead of just like jumping it out into the world, I do there needs to be a little bit more of an incubation period. So I need to get it ready and talk about it to the audience I want that feels right and in the way that feels right. I get really excited. Sometimes I put the cart a little bit before the horse, but I'm learning to um, use my excitement, but get a little grounded before it all comes out. Listen to those whispers. Always create the space. The whispers will come in. They'll keep at you if you're not listening. If you're listening but not listening, like you hear them but you're not acting on them, they'll keep nudging at you for sure. Hands up if you've experienced that. It's like you need to do the thing, but you haven't done the thing. Those are the things that they're I don't really want to label them as a should because I guess I'm putting my own connotation of should as a bad thing, but it's like the things you really need to do for your betterment and expansion. And one thing about following those breadcrumbs is not only does it feel easier to lead your life from that way, because when you're trying to follow the shoulds and stuff, you're always looking at external things of like, how am I supposed to do this, and what other people are telling me. Like I'm thinking of network marketing right now and just all the strategy. We are like bombarded with all these like hustle strategies and this stuff, and it's like, for one, our nerve I know my nervous system was like fried. I'm so glad that I took a step back because I see things entirely different now. But it's very action based, but where's the checking in with ourselves to just make sure that it's in alignment with our values? There are things that will work for other people that I would never do in my business. And when I've heard that they've done these things, hey, if it works for them, like have at her. But I immediately feel this like, oh, And not because it's like a fear thing of like, "Ooh, that could like really burst things open and I'm not ready for that level." It's like, "Oh, would never be able like I would feel like I need a shower after." And that's just that's everywhere, right? It's not just one industry, but you have to be able to discern and first set that compass because then you actually have a foundation that you can lead from. If you haven't set the foundation, the ego will try and lead you all over the place. You'll listen to the shoulds and you can potentially step out of alignment in your own integrity to do things that you think you should do or to get a result that you want for the wrong reasons. Remember I was talking about the undercurrent. And it ends up just feeling like resistance. You're constantly looking around at others like, what do I do next? What do I do next? Well, it's all inside. Just get quiet and listen. You'll know the next step. And you'll actually feel good about it. It'll feel easy because you're like, when you get lit up about what you want to do and what you're passionate about, like you can't freaking wait to do it, right? Sometimes it needs a little bit of time. You gotta like fully develop it. It's like you're excited to you want a peony and you're excited and you plant it and you can't wait till it grows and blooms because it's the most beautiful flower. But like, hey, it's gonna take 2 or 3 years before you actually see a bloom, but it's still worth the time. It's still worth the work you put into it because you know what it's gonna look like at the end and you know that you love it. So you put the time in and you stay patient and there's no timeline crunch. You just keep nourishing it and wait till it unfolds in front of you because it will. I also have written down here the difference between, and I think this is ties into exactly what I was just saying. So this is kind of a nice segue. Just to put a little bit of a like a name to it. Um, Joyful desires. I was just talking about we want that thing because it lights us up, but just know that things take time. We can't have it tomorrow or yesterday, right? We have to build and nourish the things. There's a difference between joyful desires and wounded wants. Wounded wants, as it says in the term, it comes from a wound. And we do lots of things from a wounded place. People pleasing. That's that's a lack of our own like self-worthiness, self-acceptance. We think and feel that if we do all of these things outside of ourselves for other people, that they'll show us the appreciation that we're not giving ourselves. And that's essentially not only is it kind of throwing your power away to do the work inside and have that feeling inside of you coming out, you're trying to reach for it to get it to feel like you have it. And we can never rely on others or external factors to feel the things that really belong inside of us. Does that hit? Sonia says I need to get quiet, often too many shoulds to do. Yeah. If you find your like use that word as a flag of curiosity, of mindfulness. When you have your list or you're resisting something and you can catch yourself being like, oh, I should do that today. Stop and just stop for a moment. You just said should. Look at the true intention behind it. What is it feeding or where is it coming from? Are you only doing it because others expect it of you? Then where's your boundary? And are you doing it so that you feel like you fit in somewhere? People will accept you? I've talked a few times in different trainings about the difference between fitting in and belonging. Fitting in is when we change who we are so that people will accept us. Doesn't feel good to the soul, I'll tell you that much. Belonging is when we show up exactly who we are and people accept us for who we are. And there's a difference. And if you find that you're molding, it's for a wounded want. It's really for an acceptance that you need to find within yourself. And that can get into like lots of heavy topics. But what I was saying last night in our training, it was interesting how it kind of came through intuitively to me. And I think I just ended up, and I said it today to a colleague, I said, we're all just walking around with a bunch of like parkas on, all these layers of, uh, subconscious programming and societal conditioning and all this stuff. We're all just walking around with a bunch of parkas on, but not everyone wakes up to it, to acknowledge it, and actually puts in the work to like take the parkas off so that we feel lighter and brighter. Our inner essence shines brighter when we start to take those layers off. And that's how, when we do the healing work, when we go to therapy, when we do the shadow work, we do inner child stuff, right? That's all the work. That's literally what the work is. It's like taking the coats off that we've accumulated through our life, through the experiences that we've had, the things people have told us along the way that we have started to believe and tie into our identity. And we create those wounded wants. We want these things from a place of not enough. And it might work out in the short term, but it's not sustainable because the foundation of it, if you were to think of it like a house, like the bricks are just thrown everywhere because you're just like, oh, I'll take a thing from here and oh, that person said something nice, so I'll do that. But it's not grounded. There's no real foundation under it. Does that make sense? Like the skyscraper is going to fall because it was built on things we cannot predict or rely on. We have to build it from within. Margot says it took her up to a year to realize she was people pleasing and how she needed to set boundaries and stop people pleasing and why she was doing it. And especially if you've been doing it a long time, I mean, there's neuroscience to that. We create pathways in our brain and it just becomes our brain wants to run efficiently, right? So these behaviors, these thoughts, beliefs, these behaviors that really they become like a highway and they become something we're not. It's like when you're driving down if anyone's in the 401 corridor or 402, like it's like a straight shot and you kind of zone out. It's just efficient. It's straight and it's long, no turns. That's like the pathways in our brain. The more that we've created these connections, the harder it is to break. So you have to give yourself a lot of grace when you're working at rewiring these things because there's a neuroscience part of it, there's beliefs, like there's layers to it. So give yourself grace. That's the best thing you can give yourself when you're trying to break patterns and habits and learn healthier ways to cope and navigate with life. If we shame ourselves and we should on ourselves, we're just going to go back to the old ways, right? Okay, another tip that I have, we're just going to kind of finish up here, is if this is related to a goal that you're working towards, and especially if it's something really tangible, like some things we can't fully know exactly how it's going to turn out, right? Because that's life. But say you're like saving up for a car. Like for me, my dream car is a Dodge Challenger. I light up every time I see one, every single time. I have wanted one since they came out in like 2000. When was the first time they were reintroduced? Like 2006 or something. I have been drooling over them for almost 20 years. And one day I'm going to own one. So this is just like a cheesy example. But if you have something that's like tangible, maybe you're saving up for a house or whatever that looks like, that like maybe you don't maybe know when exactly it's going to happen or all the steps, but you know the end result for this one. Tap into how the result makes you feel first. Like, how is that going to make you feel? That's going to increase your motivation to move towards it because it's like, oh my gosh. And for an example, last year we rented a Dodge Challenger when we were in San Diego. We took it out to the desert, we took it along the coast, and it was like not only could I before sit and imagine what it would be like to have this car, we actually drove it around for like 3 days. I actually got to sit in it, I got to drive it. And if there's nothing more real than that, like it was very tangible, but sometimes we can't do that exactly. But start to connect to the feeling of what you're moving towards or what needs to be done. That will help you connect to your motivation. Also, on the flip side, if you're not sure that it's a should or that it's not in alignment with your values, when you start to tap into the feeling of it, it's not gonna feel good. And that's your indicator to go, hey, oh, I need to reevaluate this. I need to get curious about this. If it doesn't bring you joy to feel about the result of it, um, you need to take another look. And again, difference between fear and misalignment in values. Also, when you really feel into where you're going and you start to get that excitement, you're connecting. Well, I mean, technically, you're kind of connecting to the future, but you are being present in that moment because you're thinking of something like very actively. But see if the next action towards that goal comes into your mind. All right, I'm so excited about this thing, especially when it gets really close. It's like, okay, it's becoming more real. What's the next thing that I need to do? Put that intention out there. Your subconscious mind will work towards it. It's always trying to solve problems. You can set an intention before you go to bed of like, I need ideas for this. What's the next right thing? Your brain will keep working on it while you're sleeping. And I guess lastly here, I have a little note on identity, and I think it was related to one of the maybe the undercurrent intention. This is a whole other topic on its own. We're actually going to be talking about it soon in the Build Your Soul Care tool belt. We're going into like deep dive topics. It's blowing my own mind. But what I've written here is identity creates its own fulfillment. And our identity is made up of three things: our thoughts, our beliefs, our thoughts, and our emotions. Our beliefs kind of drive our thoughts, right? They're based on our beliefs. Our thoughts drive our emotions because we have reactions to them physiologically, emotionally. Our emotions drive our actions. We act according to how we're feeling based on our thoughts and our beliefs. And our actions create our results. So, in a really like short and easy way, if we're not getting the results that we want, we have to look back at we have to look back along all of the things. What makes up our identity? What is the belief that's not feeding through the different areas that then drive my energy, which those things also make up your energy, right? The energy that you put behind the action that creates the results. That's another important piece of the puzzle. What is the energy? What is the true energy behind what I've been doing? I found this many times in the network marketing world of like, oh, I'm trying so hard, but I'm not getting this result. And when I became aware of this, when I learned this, I was like, okay, I can see truly when I take a true, honest inventory, many times the energy behind it wasn't so great. I thought I should do it. It was the next thing that was going to be like the successful thing you can get, which I don't, anyway, that's a whole other topic. But I realized I didn't even really have my own back for some of the things. Like the energy driving it wasn't good. It wasn't motivated. And I would sometimes like quit behind my own back or just like meh, I it became very blatant to me that energy is important to look at, and energy is created by our beliefs, thoughts, and feelings around things. So we still have to go, we can see once we can feel the energy or be aware of it, we still have to go steps backwards and work with the real root, the real undercurrent of which is driving the entire thing. But these are like steps along the way that we can have that are, I guess, flags, right? That will kind of, it'll bring it to our attention that there's something deeper that we need to look at. How's everyone doing? Do we have any questions? I feel like this was a big topic. Sometimes I feel like I totally go on like rants and side tangents. I get in my head like as I'm speaking, but when I listen to it back, I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad. So I hope that made sense. I hope there's some good nuggets. How is everyone feeling? Do you feel like you have something to take away from this on why you may not be motivated in some experiences? Feel free to thanks, Margot. Feel free to pop in the comments. We can talk about this. It's an interesting one, right? Because I just don't think we think about these things this deeply in general, right? It's I'll say something polarizing here. Should have said this at the start probably, but it just came to me as a reminder. Our society and the way things are kind of driven, it's kind of opposite. I feel like it's kind of opposite to what I've been talking about. If you're not feeling motivated, you're not working hard enough. You're not doing the right things. And this, because this is the norm, this is what drives this crazy workhorse of like looking outside of ourselves, because when things aren't working, and truly what all we need to do is look at our values, if it's even aligned with us, and because that's the energy we draw, like we create to motivate ourselves. Instead of looking at those things, we're told that we're not working hard enough, and that just ends up creating this like not enoughness. We think that we're wrong. What we're doing is wrong, or who we are is wrong. Sometimes we take it to that great length if we have a wound around that, right? So it really like it derails us the way that the conversations are happening around motivation. We're not broken. We're not wrong. If we're not getting the results, we need to look at what the intention is and why we're trying to do this or force ourselves to do this. Sometimes we just got to do the thing because we have to do the thing. It's a thing at work we have to do, and maybe we don't like to, maybe we're having a hard time getting motivated, but I don't know, put on some music that gets you pumped up so you can get through whatever you're slogging through. Whatever will help you to get through it. But when it comes to the deeper things, if you're in a business, I do want to talk more about business stuff for the network marketers in here, because I stopped doing the no hustle group just because I can't have 3 groups. That's way too much. So I like to speak to kind of both. But we need to take a deeper look. We need to take a step back. We need to take a breath, regulate ourselves, and look at the true intention behind what we're doing. And if we're not feeling motivated, let's give ourselves the benefit of the doubt before we make ourselves wrong or let society make us wrong and tell us that we're not working hard enough. Because this is where burnout starts. This is an absolute recipe for burnout, exhaustion, resentment. Resentment is tied to boundary issues, right? Lack of boundaries. So there's a bigger conversation here. So I hope that the points that I talked about this evening give you an idea of other things to look at so that you don't feel like you're doing it wrong or you're not doing enough, when you could quite literally be burning out your own nervous system and not taking care of yourself to try and do something that was never going to work in the first place because it's misaligned, right? So that's my rant. Truthfully, I hope there's some good stuff in here. And it just, again, it's about getting curious, giving yourself grace. You will always do the best that you can. We do the best that we can till we know better. When we know better, we do better. So if there's something that you learned here and you can take it away and get curious and just like look at it a little bit from an outside perspective. Don't be too hard on yourself. We're all learning, we're all growing. And that's all that's important. So, all right, friends, I hope everyone has a wonderful evening or whatever time of day you're listening or watching this. And if you have any questions, pop them in the comments. What we're mid-month now, so I haven't picked the April date or the topic, but if you have any topic suggestions, let me know and I'll announce that offer soon. It's a good one. It's related to intuition and stuff. So take care and we will talk soon. Bye everyone.